Welcome to the Sleepcast. For this episode, we will dive into the forest. In a hidden valley where moonflowers glow and dreams take root like living things, a mysterious woman known as the Moonkeeper tends to a magical garden that only reveals its true beauty under starlight. When sleepless Elara stumbles upon this sanctuary of peace, she discovers plants that release calming mists, trees that sing lullabies, and star fruit that glows with the power to heal even the most restless mind. Join her on a gentle journey through this enchanted refuge, where worries dissolve like morning mist, and sleep becomes as natural as breathing. And now, the Garden of the Moonkeeper presented in full. In a valley where time moved like honey and dreams grew on silver branches, there lived an old woman known only as the Moonkeeper. Her cottage sat nestled between rolling hills that gleamed pearl white under starlight, surrounded by the most extraordinary garden anyone had ever seen, though few had ever seen it. For the garden only revealed its true beauty when the moon was full and the world had grown quiet. The Moonkeeper's garden was unlike any other. During the day, it appeared ordinary enough. Neat rows of herbs and vegetables, a small orchard of apple trees, and flower beds that seemed pleasant but unremarkable. But when night fell and the moon began its slow climb across the velvet sky, something magical happened. The very air began to shimmer, and the garden transformed into a place where sleep and dream took root like living things. Moonflowers unfurled their luminous petals, each one glowing with soft silver light. Dream moss carpeted the winding paths, cushioning every footstep with the gentleness of cloud. Lavender bushes swayed without wind, releasing their calming fragrance in gentle waves that drifted through the still air like whispered lullabies. And in the very center of the garden stood the most wondrous sight of all, the dreaming tree, its branches heavy with fruits that looked like glowing orbs of captured starlight. The Moonkeeper tended this garden with infinite patience and care. Every evening, as the sun painted the sky in shades of rose and gold before surrendering to twilight, she would emerge from her cottage, wearing a cloak woven from moonbeams and mist. Her hair, silver as starlight, flowed freely down her back, and her eyes held the deep wisdom of countless peaceful nights. She moved through her garden with the quiet grace of someone who understood the delicate nature of dreams. With gentle hands, she would water the sleepy-time violets with dew collected from spiderwebs at dawn. She would whisper soft encouragements to the restroot plants, whose deep purple flowers bloomed only in darkness and whose very presence could soothe the most troubled mind. The night-blooming jasmine received her special attention, for its sweet perfume carried dreams to those who needed them most. But the Moonkeeper's most important task was tending to the dream pods, peculiar plants that grew in clusters throughout the garden. These pods were translucent and oval-shaped, each one containing a swirling mist of different colors. Some held the soft blue of peaceful slumber, others the gentle gold of happy dreams, and still others the deep purple of healing rest. The Moonkeeper would check each pod carefully, ensuring they were ripe and ready to release their contents into the night air. One evening, as autumn painted the world in shades of amber and russet, a young woman named Elara stumbled upon the garden quite by accident. She had been walking for hours, unable to sleep for weeks, due to worries that circled her mind like restless birds. Her work at the village library had become overwhelming, and every night she would lie in bed, her thoughts racing from one concern to another, sleep remaining as elusive as morning mist. Elara had decided to take a moonlit walk, hoping the cool night air might tire her enough to finally rest. But as she wandered the winding country roads, she became lost in thought, and then simply lost. The familiar paths seemed to shift and change under the moon's pale light, leading her down lanes she had never seen before. It was then that she noticed the soft glow emanating from beyond a hedge of wild roses. Curious and drawn by the gentle light, she pushed through a gap in the hedge and found herself standing at the edge of the most beautiful garden she had ever seen. The air itself seemed to sparkle with silver dust, and the fragrance that surrounded her was like breathing in peace itself. The moonkeeper looked up from where she knelt, beside a patch of dream mint, her kind eyes reflecting the garden's gentle glow. She was not surprised to see Elara. Visitors always found their way to her garden exactly when they needed to most. "Welcome, child," the moonkeeper said, her voice as soft as rustling leaves. "I can see by the shadows under your eyes that sleep has been avoiding you." Elara nodded, suddenly feeling as though she might cry from relief at being understood. "I haven't slept properly in weeks," she admitted. "My mind won't stop spinning, even when I'm exhausted." The moonkeeper rose gracefully and approached Elara with gentle steps. "Sleep is like a shy forest creature," she said, her voice carrying the wisdom of countless nights. "The more you chase it, the further it runs. But create the right conditions, and it will come to you willingly." She gestured for Elara to follow her deeper into the garden. As they walked along the dream moss path, the moonkeeper began to share the secrets of her magical sanctuary. She explained how each plant had been carefully chosen and cultivated not just for its beauty, but for its ability to bring peace to troubled minds and rest to weary bodies. They paused beside a small grove of trees, whose leaves chimed softly in the breeze like distant bells. "These are the serenity willows," the moonkeeper explained. "Their song carries away the day's worries, leaving space for calm thoughts to take root." As they listened to the gentle chiming, Elara felt her shoulders begin to relax for the first time in weeks. The constant tension she had been carrying seemed to flow out of her body, like water finding its way to the sea. Next, they visited a moonlit pond where lotus flowers floated on the still surface, their petals seeming to pulse with inner light. "The tranquil lotus," the moonkeeper said, settling onto a moss-covered stone beside the water. "Legend says that each flower holds a moment of perfect peace. When you look into their light, you remember what it feels like to be truly calm." Elara knelt beside the pond and gazed into the soft glow of the nearest lotus. As she watched, the petals seemed to unfold further, revealing depths of light that seemed to go on forever. Her breathing naturally slowed and deepened, and the racing thoughts that had plagued her for so long began to quiet. "How is this possible?" Elara whispered, afraid to break the spell of tranquility that was settling over her. The moonkeeper smiled, her expression warm and understanding. "Magic exists wherever there is genuine care and intention," she replied. "This garden has grown from decades of tending not just plants, but the needs of those who seek rest. Every seed was planted with love, every flower watered with hope." They continued their gentle tour, moving slowly through groves of sleeping sage and beds of twilight tulips. The moonkeeper showed Elara how to recognize the subtle signs that indicated when each plant was at its most potent. The way the dream moss glowed more brightly when it was ready to release its calming spores, or how the night-blooming cereus opened its magnificent flower only when the moon was perfectly positioned overhead. As they walked, the moonkeeper shared stories of other visitors who had found their way to the garden over the years. There was the merchant who had travelled so far and worked so hard that he had forgotten how to rest, and the young mother who was so worried about her children that she couldn't close her eyes even when they were safely asleep. Each person had found exactly what they needed among the garden's peaceful paths. The garden provides what each visitor requires, the moonkeeper explained as they paused beside a cluster of dream pods that pulsed with soft rhythmic light. For some, it's a simple reminder that the world can be beautiful and safe. For others, it's learning that rest is not a luxury, but a necessity, as vital as food or water. Elara watched in wonder as the moonkeeper gently touched one of the pods, causing it to release a small puff of glimmering blue mist. The mist swirled around them for a moment before dissipating into the night air, carrying with it a feeling of such profound peace that Elara's eyelids began to feel heavy. Each pod contains a different gift, the moonkeeper continued. Some hold dreamless sleep for minds that need complete rest. Others contain gentle dreams of meadows and flowing streams. And some, she touched another pod that released golden mist, hold dreams of resolution, where the mind works through problems while the body rests. As they made their way toward the center of the garden, Elara noticed that her steps had naturally slowed. The garden seemed to exist in its own pocket of time, where rushing was impossible, and every moment stretched like taffy, sweet and unhurried. Finally, they reached the dreaming tree, its branches spread wide like protective arms, its starfruit glowing with gentle light. Beneath its canopy, the moonkeeper had arranged comfortable cushions made from cloud-soft materials that seemed to cradle whoever sat upon them. "This is where visitors often choose to rest," the moonkeeper said, gesturing to the peaceful sitting area. "The dreaming tree has been growing here for centuries, its roots deep in the earth and its branches reaching toward the stars. It serves as a bridge between the waking world and the realm of dreams." Elara settled onto one of the cushions and immediately felt as though she was being embraced by the softest, most comforting presence imaginable. Above her, the starfruit swayed gently, casting shifting patterns of light and shadow that were hypnotic in their beauty. The moonkeeper sat beside her, her presence as comforting as a warm blanket on a cold night. "Tell me about your worries," she said gently. "Sometimes naming our concerns takes away their power to disturb our rest." And so Elara found herself sharing her fears. About her work, about disappointing others, about the future and all its uncertainties. As she spoke, she noticed that each worry seemed to grow smaller, less frightening in the peaceful atmosphere of the garden. The moonkeeper listened with the patient attention of someone who had heard countless worries carried by the night wind. When Elara finished speaking, the older woman nodded thoughtfully. "Worries are like seeds," she said, her voice carrying the gentle authority of deep wisdom. "Plant them in the fertile soil of a racing mind, and they grow into great thorny bushes that block out all light. But exposed to the moonlight of perspective, they often prove to be much smaller than they appeared in the darkness." She reached up and plucked one of the starfruits from the tree above them. It glowed in her palm like a captured piece of the night sky. "This fruit has been ripening for exactly as long as you've been unable to sleep," she said, offering it to Elara. "The tree knows when its gifts are needed." Elara accepted the fruit, surprised by how warm it felt in her hands. As she held it, she could feel a gentle energy flowing from it, like a lullaby made tangible. "What do I do with it?" she asked softly. "Simply hold it as you rest," the moonkeeper replied. "Let its light remind you that even in the darkest night, there is always illumination to be found. The starfruit will help your mind remember how to let go, how to trust that rest is safe." As Elara settled back against the soft cushions, the starfruit's glow seemed to pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat. The gentle light was neither too bright nor too dim, but perfectly calibrated to ease her into a state of profound relaxation. The moonkeeper began to hum a wordless melody, a tune that seemed to capture the essence of every peaceful night that had ever been. The sound drifted through the garden like a gentle breeze, harmonizing with the soft chiming of the serenity willows and the whisper of leaves in the night air. Around them, the garden continued its nightly symphony of rest. The dream pods released their mists in gentle waves. The moonflowers opened wider to catch and reflect the silver light. And the dream moss began to glow more brightly, creating a carpet of soft luminescence beneath the dreaming tree. Elara felt her breathing slow and deepen. The starfruit in her hands pulsed with warmth, and she could feel her worries dissolving like sugar in warm water. The racing thoughts that had kept her awake for so many nights gradually quieted, replaced by a sense of floating contentment. "Rest now," the moonkeeper whispered, her voice blending with the garden's peaceful chorus. "Let the night hold you safely while you sleep. Trust that the dawn will bring new strength and clearer sight." As Elara's eyes grew heavy, she was dimly aware of the garden continuing its gentle dance around her. The night-blooming flowers released their fragrances in waves, creating an atmosphere so peaceful that sleep became as natural as breathing. The starfruit's light gradually dimmed as her need for its comfort lessened, and she felt herself sinking into the deepest, most restful sleep she had experienced in months. The moonkeeper remained beside her, a gentle guardian watching over her rest. Throughout the night, she tended to the garden's needs, ensuring that every plant continued to contribute to the atmosphere of peace. She adjusted the dream pods to release just the right amount of calming mist, whispered encouragements to the night-blooming jasmine, and made sure the serenity willows maintained their gentle chiming lullaby. As the hours passed, other night creatures began to appear in the garden. Not ordinary animals, but beings made of moonlight and dreams. Soft, luminous rabbits hopped silently along the paths, their presence adding to the garden's sense of magical safety. Butterflies woven from starlight danced among the moonflowers, their wings trailing sparkles that settled on the sleeping plants like blessing. The moonkeeper smiled as she watched these gentle spirits of the night. They came whenever someone found true rest in her garden, drawn by the pure energy of peaceful sleep. Their presence was a sign that the garden was fulfilling its purpose, providing sanctuary for both the visitor and the natural world of dreams. As dawn approached, painting the eastern sky in shades of pearl and rose, the garden began its gradual transformation back to its daytime appearance. The moonflowers slowly furled their petals, storing their light for the next evening. The dream pods ceased their gentle releases, and the starfruit on the dreaming tree dimmed to a barely perceptible glow. Elara awakened naturally as the first rays of sunlight touched her face. For a moment, she lay still, marveling at how completely rested she felt. Her body was relaxed, her mind clear and calm, and the worries that had seemed so overwhelming the night before now appeared manageable, reduced to their proper size and importance. The starfruit in her hands had transformed during the night. Instead of the glowing orb she remembered, she now held what appeared to be a simple smooth stone, warm and pleasant to touch, but no longer luminous. Yet she could feel that it still carried a trace of the garden's magic within it. The moonkeeper was gone, but Elara found a small note tucked among the cushions, written in flowing script on paper that seemed to shimmer with residual moonlight. Dear Elara, the garden's gifts are now part of you. When sleep eludes you, hold the stone and remember this place. Create your own moments of peace. Tend your own inner garden of rest. The moon will always light your way back to tranquility. With starlight and dreams, the moonkeeper. Elara carefully folded the note and placed it in her pocket along with the stone. As she made her way back through the garden, she noticed that while it had returned to its daytime appearance, she could still sense the magic that lay just beneath the surface. The ordinary herbs and flowers seemed to nod at her as she passed, as if acknowledging a shared secret. She found the gap in the hedge through which she had entered, and as she stepped back onto the country road, she turned for one last look at the garden. In the growing daylight, it appeared to be simply a well-tended cottage garden, but Elara knew she would always be able to see its true nature. The walk home passed quickly, and Elara found herself moving with a lightness she hadn't felt in weeks. The problems that awaited her at the library were still there, but they no longer seemed insurmountable. She had been reminded of something important, that rest was not a sign of weakness, but a necessary part of living, and that peace was always available to those who knew how to cultivate it. That evening, as she prepared for bed in her own cottage, Elara held the warm stone in her palm and closed her eyes. Immediately, she could smell the faint fragrance of night-blooming jasmine and hear the distant chiming of willow leaves. The magic of the moonkeeper's garden lived on in her memory, a sanctuary she could visit whenever she needed to remember how to rest. From that night forward, sleep came easily to Elara, and sometimes, in the space between waking and dreaming, she could swear she heard the moonkeeper's gentle humming carried on the night wind, reminding her and countless others that peace was always possible for those who knew where to look for it. The garden remained tended by its devoted keeper, ready to welcome the next weary traveller who needed to remember the lost art of rest. Under each full moon, it glowed with renewed magic, a beacon of tranquility in a world that often forgot the importance of dreams. And so the moonkeeper continued her ancient work, planting seeds of peace and harvesting dreams, knowing that in a world full of noise and worry, there would always be a need for gardens where sleep could take root and grow, nurtured by moonlight and tended with infinite love.